My brother was the golden child, the saint of our family, loved by everyone. But I knew his secret, a devastating affair that would shatter his perfect life. When he realized I knew, he didn't just deny it. He launched a twisted campaign to destroy my career, my sanity, and my reputation, trying to frame me as an unhinged lunatic. He thought I would break. He thought our family's code of silence would protect him. He never imagined I'd find a way to tell the whole world the truth. This is the story of how I used an extramarital affairs podcast to burn his world to the ground. You won't believe how it all ends. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, go ahead and give it a like. It really helps me out. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks a bunch. The box was the beginning of the end. It arrived on a Saturday, the day of my parents' 40th wedding anniversary party, delivered by a courier with a crisp uniform and a polite smile. It was addressed to my brother, Mark, but had been sent to our parents' historic home in Charleston, South Carolina, where the party was being held. I was there early, helping my dad arrange tables on the veranda when the van pulled up. I signed for it without thinking. It was a huge, opulent thing from a high-end gourmet shop downtown, wrapped in cellophane and tied with a gold ribbon. I figured it was just another gift from one of Mark's fawning real estate clients. "Just put it with the others, Dave," my dad said, gesturing toward a mountain of presents in the foyer. As I lifted the heavy box, a small cream-colored envelope slipped from beneath the ribbon and fluttered to the polished heart-pine floor. I picked it up. It was thick, expensive cardstock with Mark's name written on the front in elegant looping cursive. It wasn't sealed. Thinking it was just a gift receipt or a generic card, I slid the note out. And then my world tilted on its axis. It wasn't from a client. The words on the page seemed to burn themselves into my retinas. "My dearest M, last weekend was a dream. I can still feel your hands on me, still taste the champagne. I've never felt more alive. Counting the seconds until you finally leave her and we can stop hiding our forever. All my love, always, Isabel." Isabel, not Sarah. Not Mark's brilliant, kind, beautiful wife of 10 years. My blood went cold. I shoved the note back into the envelope as if it were on fire, my heart hammering against my ribs. I looked around wildly, but no one had seen. My dad was outside, my mom was upstairs with the caterer. I was alone with this grenade that had just landed in the middle of my life. My first instinct, my only instinct, was to protect the day. My mother, Maria, had been planning this party for a year. Her health was fragile, a heart condition that made stress her mortal enemy, and this anniversary was everything to her. She worshipped Mark. He was her golden boy, the charismatic, successful son who could do no wrong. I was the quiet one, the steady one, the history professor who lived a small, predictable life. Mark was the supernova. To bring this filth into the light right now, it would shatter her. It would detonate the entire evening. So I did what I had always done. I made a choice to keep the peace. I slipped the note into my jacket pocket, a piece of poison against my chest, and carried the gift basket into the foyer, placing it gently among the others. I would deal with it later. I would talk to Mark. I would figure it out. Later. The party was a masterclass in his deception. I watched him move through the crowd, a king in his court. He gave a toast to our parents that was so heartfelt and beautiful it brought tears to everyone's eyes. He held our mother's hand, telling her she was the most beautiful woman in the room. I watched him pull Sarah onto the dance floor, whispering in her ear, making her laugh that wonderful, uninhibited laugh of hers. He looked every inch the devoted husband, the perfect son, and I felt like a ghost at the feast, haunted by the words in my pocket. The cognitive dissonance was a physical weight, making it hard to breathe. How could this man, my brother, contain such a staggering duality? He must have seen something in my face. Later in the evening, he found me alone by the bar, nursing a bourbon. He clapped a hand on my shoulder, his smile as bright and effortless as ever. "Hey, stranger," he said. "You've been quiet tonight. Everything okay?" I couldn't meet his eyes. Yeah, I'm fine, just tired." He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a confidential murmur. "You sure? You look." "I don't know, wound up, stressed." "But you gotta leave work at work, man. Don't bring that energy here, not tonight. Mom's having the time of her life." It was so subtle, so brilliant. He was already framing my distress as my problem, my fault. He was painting me as the harbinger of bad vibes, the cloud in his perfect sky. He was gaslighting me before I'd even said a word. I just nodded, unable to form a coherent sentence, and he gave my shoulder a final squeeze before melting back into the party. I never found the right moment to confront him. The days after the party bled into a week, then two. The note sat in my desk drawer at home, a toxic secret I shared with no one, not even my wife Anna. How could I tell her? It felt like a betrayal just to know it. Every family dinner, every phone call became an exercise in strained politeness. I was distant, and everyone noticed. Then the strange thing started happening. It began with an email to the head of my department at the College of Charleston. It was from an anonymous address, a vicious, rambling message accusing me of having an inappropriate relationship with one of my graduate students. It was a lie, a complete fabrication, but it was enough. My department head, a stern woman named Dr. Albright, called me into her office for a deeply uncomfortable conversation. I denied it, of course, but the seed of suspicion had been planted. The air at work grew thick with whispers. A week later, I came out of a late seminar to find both of my car's front tires slashed. I filed a police report, but there were no cameras in that part of the campus lot. It felt personal. It felt targeted. I tried to talk to my parents. I drove over to their house one afternoon, determined to explain that something was wrong, that I felt like I was being attacked. I found my mom in the garden, and before I could even get started, she took my hands, her face etched with worry. "David, honey, Mark told me you've been having a hard time," she said, her voice soft with concern. "He said you're under a lot of pressure. He's worried about you. We all are. Please, whatever is going on, don't let it get out of hand. Your father and I, we just want peace." Mark had gotten to them first. He had twisted my anxiety into a narrative of instability. I was having a hard time. I was the problem. I was the one threatening their peace. I left without saying another word, the injustice of it all choking me. The final terrifying piece fell into place a few nights later. I was working late in my home office, unable to sleep, when an email notification popped up on my screen. It was from a generic service, an alert that a new device had been logged into our family's shared cloud storage account, the one we used for photos and documents. I hadn't logged in from a new device. On a hunch, I opened the account's activity log. A new device, a burner phone, based on the generic model number, had accessed the account just minutes before. My heart started to race. I navigated to the recently uploaded files. There was a folder titled Evidence. My hands were shaking as I clicked on it. Inside was a collection of screenshots. They were text messages, filled with violent, threatening language, seemingly sent from me to Mark. "And you'll pay for what you've done. So I know everything, and I'm coming for you." There were also copies of the anonymous emails sent to my university, and a draft of a police report Mark intended to file, claiming he was being harassed by his jealous, unstable older brother. It was a complete, meticulously crafted narrative designed to frame me. He had faked the texts. He had likely slashed my tires. He had orchestrated the entire campaign to utterly annihilate my credibility. I felt a wave of nausea so intense I had to grip my desk to keep from falling. This wasn't just about covering up an affair. This was a preemptive strike. He knew that I knew. He must have realized the note was missing from the gift basket. And instead of coming clean, instead of asking for my silence, he had decided to scorch the earth. He was going to paint me as a criminal, as a lunatic, so that if I ever did speak up, no one would believe me. My own brother was willing to send me to jail or a psychiatric ward to protect his perfect life. In that moment, sitting in the blue glow of my monitor, something inside me broke. The man I had grown up with, the boy I'd built forts with, was gone. In his place was a monster wearing his face. The learned helplessness, the lifetime of swallowing my own needs to keep the family peace. It all evaporated in a blaze of cold, hard rage. The desire for peace was replaced by a thirst for war. He thought I was the quiet one. He thought I was the weak one. He was about to find out how wrong he was. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to burn his kingdom to the ground. The rage didn't burn hot. It froze into something solid and sharp in my chest. For the first time in my life, I felt a sense of absolute, unclouded clarity. The family I'd been trying to protect was an illusion. Its peace was a carefully maintained facade, and I was no longer willing to be one of its architects. Mark had made a fatal error. In trying to frame me as a monster, He had finally given me permission to fight like one. I knew I couldn't fight him on his terms. He controlled the family narrative. He had money, influence, and the unwavering sympathy of our parents. A direct confrontation would be my word against his, and I knew whose word everyone would choose. I needed an outside force, a weapon he wouldn't see coming, something that operated beyond his sphere of influence. That's when I thought of the podcast. It was a guilty pleasure of Anna's, one she listened to on her commute. It was called The Unraveling. It wasn't some gossipy, low-rent production. It was a slick, investigative journalism podcast that specialized in one thing: exposing the secrets of the wealthy and powerful. The host, a woman known only as a Clara, was a former prosecutor with a voice like silk and a mind like a steel trap. Each season she would take on one big case, usually an extramarital affair involving a public figure, and meticulously dismantle their life, piece by piece, using receipts, interviews, and damning evidence. She didn't just report on infidelity, she exposed the webs of lies, narcissism, and collateral damage that surrounded it. It was brutal, it was methodical, and it was perfect. That night, I told Anna everything. I laid it all out. The note, the gaslighting, the campaign of terror, the folder on the cloud drive. I watched her face shift from confusion to horror, to a fierce, protective anger that mirrored my own. When I told her my plan, she didn't flinch. "Do it," she said, her voice low and steady. "Can burn him. Burn it all down." Her validation was the only blessing I needed. My mission began. I downloaded every file from the evidence folder Mark had so foolishly created. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop who specialized in matrimonial cases. I didn't have Mark's money, so I cashed out a small retirement fund, a price I was more than willing to pay. I gave the PI a name, Isabel. He found her in 3 days. She was an interior designer who had worked on one of Mark's recent hotel projects. He got photos, irrefutable, high-resolution photos of Mark and Isabel checking into a boutique hotel in Savannah. He got credit card statements showing lavish gifts, flights, and dinners, all billed to a secret card under a corporate LLC. I also became my own detective. I bought a voice-activated recorder and started carrying it everywhere. The next time Mark called me feigning concern, I was ready. "Dave, I'm really worried." His voice oozed with false sincerity. "Mom says you're not sleeping. You know, if you're having some kind of breakdown, you can talk to me. There's no shame in it." "A breakdown?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "Is that what you're telling them is happening to me, Mark?" "No one's telling them anything," he said, his voice instantly defensive. "But people are talking. You're acting paranoid. You look like hell. I'm just saying, if you need help, I'm here." I recorded every syllable. It was a perfect, chilling example of his psychological warfare. After a month, I had my arsenal: the photos, the financial records, the audio recordings of his gaslighting, a full digital footprint of the burner phone he'd used to create the fake evidence, and, of course, the original handwritten note from Isabel. I compiled it all into a single, encrypted file. I wrote an email to the anonymous tip line for the Unraveling podcast. Subject: The Two Faces of Charleston's Golden Boy. The body of the email was short. "My brother is one of the most beloved men in this city. He's a philanthropist, a devoted husband, and a perfect son. He is also a pathological liar, a serial adulterer, and he is currently trying to frame me for crimes I didn't commit to cover his tracks. I have proof of everything. His name is Mark Thorne. You might want to look into him." I attached one single photo, a crystal clear shot of Mark kissing Isabel outside the hotel in Savannah. I hit send, and the waiting began. 2 days later, I got a reply from a producer. They were interested. Over the next 6 weeks, I communicated with them through encrypted channels, acting as their anonymous source, the insider. I fed them everything. They did their own independent investigation, verifying every claim, unearthing even more details. They interviewed former employees Mark had fired, other women he had pursued. They were building a case more thorough and damning than any prosecutor could. Clara, the host, wanted to understand the psychological component. I spent hours on a distorted voice call with her, explaining the family dynamics, the years of enabling his behavior, the code of silence that protected him. The podcast season was announced with a teaser that sent a shockwave through Charleston's elite social circles. It promised to expose a beloved low-country philanthropist leading a shocking double life. Mark must have heard the rumors, because his calls to me became more frequent, more desperate, laced with a new kind of menace. But I never answered. I was done talking to him. The first episode dropped on a Tuesday morning. I sat in my car in the university parking lot with Anna, listening as Clara's calm, authoritative voice filled the speakers. She laid out the foundation, the perfect family, the successful business, the flawless reputation. Then she introduced the first crack in the facade, a secret affair. By the end of the episode, my phone was buzzing with texts from cousins and family friends. With each new episode, the net tightened. Episode 2 detailed the financial infidelity, the secret credit cards, the lavish trips. Episode 3 was about the psychological manipulation, and Clara played a clip of my recorded phone call with Mark. Even with my voice distorted, his words, his tone, were unmistakably his. The gaslighting was laid bare for the world to hear. The city was in an uproar. Mark became a pariah overnight. His picture was all over the local news blogs. Sarah, his wife, moved out after the first episode and filed for divorce by the third. His business partners began to distance themselves. The final episode was the kill shot. Clara revealed the framing plot. She detailed how Mark had faked the threatening text messages, how he had created the evidence folder, how he had orchestrated a campaign to have his own brother declared mentally unstable to silence him. She ended the episode with a simple, devastating question. What kind of man doesn't just betray his wife, but is willing to destroy his own brother to hide it? That afternoon, I got the call I had been waiting for. It was my father. His voice was heavy, broken. "David," he said, and then he was silent for a long moment. I listened to all of it. "Your mother and we listened. I'm so sorry, son. We failed you. I should have seen it. I should have listened. I should have listened." There was no victory in his words, only a profound shared sorrow. But there was also release. The truth was finally out, and I had been seen. Mark's life was in ruins. Socially, financially, personally. He was an outcast in the city that had once adored him. He tried to issue a statement calling the podcast a pack of lies, but the evidence was too overwhelming. No one believed him. A few months later, Anna and I packed up our lives and moved to a quiet town in North Carolina. We needed a fresh start, away from the crater Mark's life had become. It was a painful choice to leave our home, but it was the right one. The bridges with my parents are slowly being rebuilt, but the family as I once knew it is gone forever. I feel a deep sadness for Sarah, an innocent victim in all this, and for my mother, whose perfect image of her family was irrevocably shattered. But I don't feel guilt for what I did. I feel free. I broke the code of silence that had been choking me my entire life. Mark built his kingdom on lies, and I handed the world the truth and a torch. He thought I was just the quiet brother. But he forgot that the quietest people are the ones who are always listening, always watching. And we remember everything.